Path of Exile 2 is set to be released in early access on December 6th, and there's already been a lot of drama, controversy, whatever you want to call it, in regards to the reviews for this early access release. And this is because Fextralife on YouTube posted a full review of the early access build of the game, which a lot of people were confused about given that GGG was assumed to not be sending out any review copies for the players to discover the games themselves and not have anything like Diablo 4 completely solved before the game ever released. But obviously, we're on the internet, people pulled and extrapolated what they said in the video and then obviously published this on Twitter to get like a first early access, first impression / review of the experience and what this game is set to be like. Now, breaking down what they said about the game, there was a couple interesting things that I wanted to highlight, but we'll just go through the entire post now. So they say the campaign's 35 to 40 hours, the Dark Soul of ARPGs. Another reviewer also thought the same thing as that. There's no difficulty options, no easy game, lots of challenging boss fights, Dark Souls and Elden Ring type feeling game. Maps are astronomically large, an hour to go from one side to another. That's almost unheard of in ARPGs. Maps feel a little bit empty in terms of their events, so that's a little bit of a negative. Scratch the tiniest surface of the game after 40 hours. I'm assuming this just means they did the campaign. There was a ton of endgame stuff they haven't even probably put a ton of time into, which obviously for ARPGs is a large portion of the game. Great sense of discovery, mechanics, build, lore, etc. Feels like 3 games in one. I'm assuming this means how much content is actually put in here. Almost limitless combination of builds, a lot easier to respect your skills. That's something I'm excited about. Outstanding dark theme art direction, so very dark fantasy in terms of the graphics and art style, clearly inspired by Diablo 2. That's a great thing. Details on skill effects and boss designs are best in the industry in the ARPG genre. Blown away by the amount of detail, most dynamic combat in an ARPG. We'll have to see what that ends up referring to. Switch to controller was a revelation, so very good controller support. Feels like the game was designed for controller first. Interesting. Even better than Diablo 4. Even more interesting because that was a good game on controller. Potential to be all-time king of the genre, which honestly that's something I expected. Some bugs and crashes occurred, another negative there, and they strongly believe that the developer will join the greatness alongside Larian Studios and From Software within the ARPG genre specifically. I kind of think they're already there. Now, you would expect people to be extremely excited about this. This is a lot of really good positive feedback from Fextralife, but unfortunately, there was a ton of controversy surrounding this, as I referred to at the start of my video. But before we get into that, thank you guys so much for almost 850 subscribers. I really appreciate the support. If you guys are new to the channel and you like gaming news, gaming reviews, specifically with RPGs and action adventure type of games, and you like the video you see here, please subscribe and like the video. It helps me out a lot. Now, let's get into the content. So like I mentioned, people, specifically ARPG fans and people who are excited for this game, weren't expecting anybody to get review codes previous to the early access release. This is because they wanted that sense of discovery. They wanted to find the builds for themselves. They didn't want the game to be completely solved like we've seen with Diablo 4 or other ARPGs in the past. And this is something that came to a shock when Fextralife all of a sudden had an early review code for the game and was able to get content live based on that. Now, people were very upset by this, not only because there was an early access review code out there, but on top of this, it was because Fextralife specifically had an early access code to this game, and there was definitely a negative connotation amongst gamers for Fextralife. Specifically within the Twitch streaming community, they embedded a lot of those links onto their site, so anyone who went onto their site automatically was counted as a viewer in their Twitch streams, which, you know, then in turn affects a lot of the advertising for Fextralife that get a lot of money from advertising, even though a lot of their Twitch streams are fake. This takes away, you know, money from other content creators as well. That was a big thing. On top of this, a lot of their wikis do seem to be outdated or do seem not to be the best information out there. You can still go on their Elden Ring wiki and find some outdated information. And I'm not trying to sit here and shit on Fextralife, but just for the context of why there is a negative connotation around them. And because of the outrage here, GGG Grinding Gear Games did come out and issue a statement. And this statement reads, We've seen some speculation that people might already have access to the early access version of Path of Exile 2. To clarify, some traditional games media have been given access to a review version of the game. Part of the stipulation that media were given is that this is for review purposes only. They may share their opinion of the game but are not allowed to produce guide-style content from this version that would spoil the discovery of the game or post unedited playthroughs. They are not playing on the same servers as the early access version, so none of their progress will be kept. In addition, all of the content they produce is embargoed until the release of early access on December 6th. So no content is supposed to be posted until then. They also clarify here, why did Fextra Life get a review copy and was able to release a video way before December 6th if that's when the embargo was set to release? And they say to that, unfortunately, there was a miscommunication with Fextra Life that resulted in a video being posted early. This was a mistake on our end and is in no way on Fextra Life. On release day, we want players to be able to make a more informed choice about if they would like to buy a key. We believe that allowing traditional games media access should be able to accomplish this without spoiling the game. Now, there are definitely a couple different things here that I want to break down and talk about. The first being GGG saying they gave out review codes to traditional games media, as well as giving the stipulation that you can't post any guide content because they don't want, to spoil the game for players to enjoy that discovery process. Now, I think most people are a little bit confused here because I don't think a lot of people would consider Fextra Life traditional games media. Unlike IGN, they have full wikis built out for the games that they play, which completely goes against the no guides that GGG is trying to prevent. I think a lot of people have the inkling that behind the scenes, while they're playing the game right now, they're building out their wiki to just release the day that early access launches. Now, granted, they're not going to be putting out the best wiki in the world if they do put this out. It's not going to be something like, DM, Rax, Vegeta, all the Maxroll guys who are going to be putting out the best ARPG content. Zizarain, they put out the best ARPG content. They are the blasters. Their guides that they put on Maxroll and they put on their YouTube channels are the guides. Fextra Life is not going to have anything as good as what they can put out because that's their sole focus. But I think just in general, people are upset, especially if they're going to be doing this on their wiki like they have done in the past. And if they are building that up right now to just be immediately released, they're obviously going to get a lot of that attention on the internet for anybody looking up any of those builds of the game because they had it earlier than these other blasters like I mentioned that I don't think, at least I have not heard them getting any of the early access review codes. They are obviously definitely not traditional games media either. Now, I also want to dive into the second half of the statement where GGG took blame for the miscommunication happening with Fextra Life, and that's the reason that they posted this review early. And I also want to talk about why this probably happened. So I have been in advertising for multiple years, specifically in an agency who promoted products from other companies who hired us on. And this miscommunication happens all of the time. A lot of people were coming out and saying GGG might have been lying about this to, cover Fextra Life. I definitely don't think this is the case, almost 0% that this is the case, because if Fextra Life really broke a rule here, they would just, tell them to take down the video, blacklist them, and not say anything about it. So I genuinely think this is on GGG's fault here, and why this happened is probably because a simple miscommunication with reaching out to different people that are going to be promoting or reviewing your game. Now, I didn't specifically work within games, so it might be a little bit different, but as an agency, you have communication from the brand to your agency to then the person promoting your product to the consumer. There are a lot of different things that could happen within that process and a lot of different information being passed back and forth that can cause one miscommunication with one person and accidentally giving the wrong date, making a typo. Anything can happen. Some have it automated, some don't use agencies, which will make it a little bit easier, but even then, things can still happen, and miscommunication happens almost every time you are doing a launch of sorts, whether it's a game, whether it's a product, etc., even if you're not using an advertising agency. Now, it doesn't always happen. Some companies are better at this than others, but me myself being someone who did mess up previously in my life when promoting products, it's not even always my fault on the agency. Sometimes the actual brand gives you the wrong information. Sometimes somebody at the brand doesn't actually know everything. They might tell you the information and forget to follow back up with you with the correct information. This can happen. It probably happened here, and GGG took fault for it, which I think is okay. I don't think there's any fault on Fextra Life here at all. I think people are probably just saying it's Fextra Life's fault because they don't like Fextra Life. Not saying you have to like Fextra Life at all. I'm just saying that's probably what happened here, and that's probably why they're getting the hate, and that's also probably why GGG came out and clarified. Now, I will say, being almost a week off doesn't happen often. Usually it's just like a time zone that they forget to add, and then that makes a couple people like a couple hours off or something like that. But again, I'm sure this is probably what happened here. Overall, I don't think this is going to change anybody playing the game or not. It's not going to change the excitement that people have for the game. If anything, probably make them more excited because of how good the review was. I just wanted to talk about this because being in advertising, this was very interesting to me. And I've seen this happen before, and especially with gaming, which I haven't necessarily been a part of, it is definitely a big deal, especially for those players, and I definitely understand this point as well, that don't want to be spoiled and don't want to see a wiki or a guide be released the day they start playing the game. Now, again, you can just not look at those, but I think, that's a whole different separate conversation for a different video there. I understand both points of view here, and I'm definitely excited to play this game, find out what it's all about. Also, it's set to be apparently the Dark Souls of ARPGs is what multiple reviewers now apparently behind the scenes have said, including in the Fextra Life review. I think people might be a little bit worried about that if you don't like Dark Souls or you don't like the difficulty there, but that excites me a lot. I'm excited to see what this game has to offer. I'm going to be playing it on December 6th, making a review of it, giving you my non-biased first impressions, as well as a full review and my opinions on the game, and I could not be more excited. So thank you guys for watching the video. Like the video if you like the video. Comment down below what you think about this situation. If you're still excited for the game, if you're more excited for the game, what do you think about the Dark Souls of ARPGs title here, and subscribe if you like content like this. See you in the next one. Peace.